Hello, Dr. Vikki Petersen here. I want to talk to you today about anxiety. It's something that's very prevalent in our environment, and I heard some really interesting statistics that I want to share with you regarding one's diet and anxiety. Certainly something we see here a lot at the clinic, but our mood really is connected to our diet. I'm not saying it's the exclusive reason one might feel anxiety, but it's certainly a very important factor to make sure you've sort of dotted the I's and crossed the T's in that you're not eating anything that's creating any problems in that regard, or you're not missing any nutrients that are creating such problems. But they did an interesting study of inmates in prison where violence in the prison is something that's really an issue, and they took out all the junk food and did a study where they got them good, real, nutrient-dense food, and the violence went down 56%. And then they added a multiple vitamin to the equation on top of the good diet, and the violent behavior went down up to 80%. Really, really impressive. And then they looked at juveniles, so juvenile delinquents in prison, and similar situation where they changed their diets. And I'm looking at this was 3,000 children, and what they found was a 75% reduction in the use of restraints. So they would restrain them because they're out of control. 75% reduction with a change of diet, getting to a whole food, nutrient dense, real food diet, and 100% reduction in suicide. So in this period of time that they were studying these 3,000 children, no child took their life. So very impressive. So that obviously isn't the population that we typically work with, or at all for that matter, but I thought the study results were pretty fascinating and really quite telling in what we see here in the clinic. So 30% of US adults are afflicted with anxiety, and 43% in North America take mood-altering prescriptions regularly for a variety of things, including anxiety. So what we find here is that, and by the way, anxiety is twice as common as clinical depression, so extremely common. And what's interesting about anxiety is it's very often the result of something instead of just being a primary cause. Not to say that anxiety can't be a primary issue in your life. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that when we really look at the body as a whole and address some really key potential root causes, we see incredible success with anxiety. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you about. I was just the other day, we had a 5-year-old patient. So it's a very, very young girl. She's so sweet and so adorable. She came in with her mom, and her mom had a variety of problems, and her mom suffers from anxiety. But this 5-year-old, her issues were very chronic constipation, no matter what they tried, very severe, like going to the bathroom maybe once every 10 days, extremely severe despite a lot of home remedies they had tried. And then she also wet the bed every single night of her life. She never got to that point where she was able to go through the night just with being dry, even though she was 5. And then she described it as, she said, "I'm shaking inside." So of course, you look at her, she's not shaking, but she said, "Mommy, I'm shaking." And if you've ever felt a lot of anxiety or stress, I know I have, there is that shaking feeling inside. And so, but that was her best way of describing it, was that I'm just shaking. And she felt that a great part of her life. And here she was, only 5 years old. So we've been working with her for actually several months, her constipation started to improve, and that got better and better. And then she hadn't wet the bed for, I think we're about 2 weeks in of not a single night of wetting the bed for 2 weeks. So that was a huge milestone. And then just a few days ago, she announced she's not shaking anymore. So now again, if you want to call this anxiety, I'm choosing to put it in that category based on how patients describe it. And I historically had anxiety due to a lot of hormonal and diet issues, and I know I felt shaky on the inside. I'm not saying that's the only way it manifests itself. And then I was thinking about another gentleman who came in, and he was on several medications, and he came in for weight loss. That was his goal. He happened to be on a lot of anti-anxiety medication and antidepressant medication for that matter, but that wasn't why he came to see us. He literally just wanted to lose weight, and he felt that these were medications that he needed to be on for life, so that just wasn't his focus at all. But what we found was that as he improved, he noticed he was feeling different. And then, long story short, we were able to wean him off all of those medications, and he never got back on them. I had run into him 10 years after the fact, and he was still doing great. So the moral of the story is that thinking you're not separate from your brain. I was listening to Dr. Perlmutter this morning, who's written a lot of great books, and his books are very brain focused, and he said the body and the brain are not two different things. They're one thing, and they get affected by one another, and the gut-brain connection is something we really understand. And let's jump into that next. So food sensitivities, foods that you eat that actually affect your brain and can absolutely cause anxiety. So many times patients have said, is it possible that what I was eating is actually creating all this anxiety? And again, this is not just our experience. This is very, very well documented of the gut-brain connection. So yes, what you eat is very associated. And that was that prison study. That's why I started with that. I thought it was so fascinating that they saw such a huge decrease in violence. I'm not saying anxiety is the same thing as violence, but that food brain balance connection is one we've known for a very long time. So if you suffer from anxiety, you really want to find a clinician who's thinking this way, because what we do in the US is we just put you on medication, and unfortunately, not only is that not getting to the real root cause, but these have very dangerous side effects, these medications. They have life-threatening side effects. So not something you just want to take willy-nilly, but really look at why is this there? And I understand it's not easy to find. My new patient this morning came in and said, she's on an anti-anxiety medication, and she said, I have been feeling anxiety, she said, but I really think it's associated with all this digestive problems I'm having. And I'm like, you're very smart. That is true. That's the association we see in a lot of cases. And she said, because I'm not really an anxious person, this sort of all happened at the same time. So she said, but every time I talk to my doctor, she said, well, I've already given you the medication. What else do you want? She said, I literally called her the other day and she goes, what do you want me to do for you? This was her doctor talking. And it's like, I want you to help me. That's what I want you to do for me. So unfortunately, that's not the way traditional medicine thinks. So I gave you the drug, and do you want another drug? If that one doesn't work. And it's just not fair to the person suffering, because there's so many reasons that can underlie anxiety. So we went over diet, and really part and parcel with looking at food and food sensitivities is also malabsorption, maldigestion. So you could be putting the most perfect food in your mouth, but what is your body then doing with it? Is it absorbing it and turning it into good fuel, or is that ability compromised because you don't have adequate stomach acid and you don't have adequate pancreatic enzymes, and the bile that your liver's producing is a little sludgy and it's not really emulsifying fats well, and you're it's like you're putting the perfect gasoline in your car, but then there's a hole in the gas tank and out it goes. So of course, you're not fueling yourself, and you're not giving yourself the fodder to create brain balance and create good hormonal balance. So what your body's doing with the fuel that you're giving it is really, really critical. We look at hormone balance from the adrenal glands, which is the stress gland, and your thyroid, your sex hormones. There's a hormone called progesterone that is the mellow, feel-good hormone, yet with women who have PMS, or they have acne, or migraines around their period, women who suffered a lot of nausea with being pregnant, or had postpartum depression. I mentioned the acne, heavy periods, cramping, and just anxiety is a progesterone deficiency is really, really common. And the reason it's created is that when life stress comes in, the body makes a lot of stress hormones, but it steals away from the progesterone in order to kind of just get you through the day. So you've got to sort of refuel, refill the tanks, if you will, of the progesterone and those hormones, so that the body can pull as required from what it needs. And again, that has to do with the proper hormonal balance. So in addition to that, there's chronic inflammation. Now, chronic inflammation is associated with all degenerative diseases. So whether you have obesity, and that is considered a disease these days, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, any sort of autoimmune disease, history of cancer, these are all pro-inflammatory types of diseases. So is arthritis, eczema, allergies. These are all pro-inflammatory conditions. And with that inflammation, you can get nervous system inflammation as well, and anxiety can be a result of that. So as you can see, it's a pretty long list, but it's one that has to be gone through with each individual. Now, the woman I saw this morning did have a lot of digestive complaints. She had evidence of hormonal imbalance. She was somebody who was nauseous. She has a lot of nausea, but when she was pregnant, had a lot of nausea throughout her pregnancy, which is an indication of the progesterone deficiency. So again, everybody has their own story, but if you're suffering with anxiety, there is a reason why. And I don't care if it runs in your family. It ran in my family as well, but it didn't mean I had to suffer with it. It just meant I had to figure out what I needed to do in order to regain that balance. And you can do that. It's not the quick pill. It is diet and lifestyle change, but so worth it to not have that high stress, high anxiety feeling. It's very hard to enjoy life, be productive, and really get done everything you want to in life when you've got this anxiety, sort of this dark cloud hanging over you. So no, I'm not giving you take valerian root as a solution, or put some progesterone on your skin. That would be irresponsible of me to say any of those things. What I am saying is the truth as I know it, the truth as we know it here at Root Cause Medical Clinic, which is we need to understand you and what imbalance is in you that we need to then restore balance to. What obstacles are in the way, get rid of those, and then your body regains balance, and we can, in most cases, handle anxiety. So I hope that was clear. And if you have any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to do a phone consultation if you're kind of ready to address this. So you can give me a call, 408-733-0400. I'll talk to you soon.